Hello all, Namaskar. Again, welcome you to another session of MUMUKSHU. Today we will be discussing about the second school of Indian philosophy, that is the second Astika school of Indian philosophy, that is Yoga. You can see this is the practical school of Sankhya philosophy. Basically, yesterday means before we have already discussed the Sankhya philosophy. So Yoga philosophy would be taking all the metaphysical and the epistemological things of Sankhya. So this is Yoga philosophy. Yoga philosophy is Astika philosophy. In fact, the second Astika philosophy, the mostly it is derived from the Patanjali's Yogasutra. What is Patanjali's Yogasutra? It is a treatise on the various yogic practices and it describes the philosophical system of yoga. But what does yoga mean? The literal meaning of yoga is union. In fact, it is not yoga, it is yoga. So what does yoga mean? Yoga means union. This is the Vedantic interpretation which says that the spiritual union of the individual soul with the universal soul. In fact, it is like the merging of the individual with the universal or realization of the individual soul that it is not different from the universal soul. However, this is the Vedantic interpretation. However, the real yogic interpretation as per the yoga school is that it is the spiritual effort to attain perfection through control of the body, senses and mind. And again, what is the thing, what we have studied yesterday, that what is liberation in Sankhya? That is the separation of the Purusha from the Prakriti. And how it will happen? It will happen only when the Purusha discriminates itself from the Prakriti, that it is not the Prakriti, rather it is the pure consciousness that is Purusha. So yoga is the way of achieving it as per the yoga philosophy. However, the Vedantic interpretation is different. And as we have discussed yesterday, that the Sankhya and the Vedantic schools are direct head-on to each other, because Sankhya is dualistic and Vedantic is mostly monistic. So basically, yoga is also here dualistic because it accepts Prakriti and Purusha as the two ultimate realities. In fact, it also accepts there is another god, and they consider it as a special type of Purusha. So we will see that later. So yoga school accepts the metaphysics and epistemology of Sankhya, and I have written here mostly. Why? Because there are some differences in the yoga school. So we will see that also. What all it accepts? It accepts the 25 principles or the 25 tattvas, what we have seen yesterday, which includes the Purusha and Prakriti and all the 23 evolutes of Sankhya school. In fact, it also the epistemological thing it accepts, that is the epistemological sources of knowledge, the valid sources of knowledge according to it were Pratyaksha, that is perception, Anumana, that is inference, and Shabda, that is the testimony. Why? Again, we had discussed yesterday that it is a realistic school. So perception they have to accept. They cannot directly perceive Prakriti, that's why they have to infer it, and they have accepted Anuman. And why this Vedic testimony or the Aptavachana or the Vaidika Sabda? Because it is a Astika school and it believes in the authorities of the Vedas. So that's why they believe in these three sources of knowledge. These three are the pramanas. Use of the words are very important over here. Now again you will see that here it believes in God as highest self, distinct from other selves. This is something that we find where the yoga school is deviating from the Sankhya school, and hence it is called Seshwara Sankhya, that is Sa Ishvara. Ishvara is there, that's why it is Seshwara Sankhya or the theistic Sankhya, whereas the original Sankhya at many times is called Nirishwara Sankhya or the atheistic Sankhya. In fact, you can say it is an outlet of the Sankhya school, it is the practical aspect of the Sankhya school, but however it has established itself as a very different philosophical system and has gained huge relevance nowadays. In fact, you all are aware that June 21st is celebrated as the International Day of Yoga. So this is the school that has inspired it. We will see how. Now, let us first discuss the comparison of Sankhya and Yoga school, how they are different from each other. Basically, we have discussed that Sankhya is the theoretical aspect and Yoga takes all those theories and puts it in practical things. For example, like the Sankhya says that gaining the right knowledge is the way in which the Purusha will get differentiated from the Prakriti and it will attain Apavarga, that is liberation. However, Yoga school gives us the way how it will attain the right knowledge, that is the Viveka Khyati, that they say, and it will get separated from the Prakriti. Then again, Sankhya is atheistic, however, Yoga is theistic because it has special Purusha or the Purusha Vishesha or the God. It is the school based on reasoning. What? Sankhya is a school based on reasoning. It is like the intellectual work, the theory. However, Yoga believes in meditation. It is much more about knowing yourself rather than reading all the textbook stuffs. And here Sankhya, you know that the first evolute is the Mahat. It is the cosmic source. And in the psychological source, what do we call the same Mahat? It is Buddhi or the intellect. However, in yoga, they say that the first evolute is chitta and it consists of manas, ahankara and mahat. Or many times it is written buddhi also, because we have discussed that buddhi and mahat are the same thing. In cosmic sense it's mahat, in psychological sense it is buddhi. When we apply it in the human being thing, this is called buddhi. So what do we have called this manas, ahankara and mahat yesterday, collective name? It is antahakarana. Antahakarana that we have discussed in the Sankhya school. So this is Antahakarana, or Antahakarana is Chitta over here, which is the first product when the Purusha and Prakriti interact with each other. And what, so now we had yesterday seen that the Sopadhik Purush is getting reflected in Mahat, and here the reflection would be in Chitta, where in yogic school. Further, Sankhya, I have said it is the scholarly work, it is the theoretical work, that's why it is Gyan Yoga, whereas it is Dhyan Yoga, what it is, what you say, it's more about knowing yourself. So now we will see what all things are there in Yogasutra. You might be feeling this thing is not required. However, I want you to read this because this is very small and you can quote that while writing the answers. For example, the Samadhipada. What is Samadhipada? Samadhipada deals with nature and aim of concentration, because what you have seen, how can you attain liberation in Sankhya and Yogic school? Because many times Sankhya and Yoga are termed at the single time. In Bhagavad Gita, you will say they don't say Sankhya differently and Yoga differently, rather they say Sankhya Yoga. They are one school which are differentiated into two aspects. So what Sankhya says, how do you attain liberation? You attain liberation when you have the right knowledge, or the Viveka Khyati, or the Samyak Khyati, or the Samyak Jnana. How do you get that? When you concentrate and discriminate what is Prakriti and Purusha. So nature and aim of concentration by which you will attain liberation is discussed in the first part of Yogasutra, that is Samadhipada. The next is Sadhanapada. It says the means to realize the above end. How will you get this concentration? One is that what is the aim of the concentration. Next, how do you attain that? And the third part is Vibhuti Pada, that is supranormal powers attained through yoga. You must be aware, by yoga you have seen many Rishi Munis, they have many supernatural powers. They can stop the rain, they can stop the thunder, they can talk with the animals won't hurt them, they can bring something out of the magic. How do you get it? It is from the yoga. However, yogic school warns you that this must not be your aim, because while you are busy collecting the stones on the path, you will miss your destination. While you are busy yourself in acquiring all the supernatural powers, you will forget that you have to separate the Purusha from Prakriti. However, they have discussed what are supernatural powers that you can acquire through yoga. This is the third part. And the last part is Kaivalya path. This is Kaivalya path. What is Kaivalya? Kaivalya is Mukti. Mukti what? Moksha in the Hindi terms. So basically, Kaivalya path, it says the nature of liberation and the reality of the transcendental self. So why do I want you to remember this? Because while quoting the answer, you can say that. For example, let us go now deep where I will say how do you quote it. Now here Patanjali Yoga is also called the Raj Yoga. You must have heard it. So the first thing, what exactly is there in the yoga school? It says that we have to separate the Purusha and Prakriti. But how do we do that? And what exactly yoga talks about? In the first part, that is the Samadhipada of Patanjali Yoga. In this way, I want you to quote it. In the first part, it is in fact 1.2 sloka. In 1.1, the first sloka says, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Here comes the teachings of yoga school. The second part is the main part, and it says, Yoga Chittavriti Nirodha. This is the main part around which the whole of the yoga school is revolving. If you understand the meaning of this term, you are thorough with the yoga school. So we will discuss that. So here there are terms that are coming. There are 4 terms. One is yoga, another is chitta, another is vritti, another is nirodha. So you will see what is yoga. So yoga is defining that yoga is defined as the nirodha. Nirodha means the stoppage or cessation. The cessation of the chittavritti is yoga. What is chittavritti? They are the mental modifications. So this takes us to our first term, that is chitta. And we have discussed that chitta is the 3 internal organs of Sankhya, that is the Antahakarana, that is buddhi or intellect. You can say it as Mahat when you are referring it as cosmic term, Ahankara or ego, and Manas and mind. These 3 terms combined are Chitta, and they are collectively called as Antahakarana. So this is the first evolute of Prakriti with predominance of Sattva-guna. Why Sattva-guna? Because you must be aware, yesterday we had seen that Sattva-guna is there when the first evolute comes. Mahat has predominance of Sattva-guna. So as here Mahat is there is predominance of Sattva-guna. And we know that Sattva-guna has the power of reflection. It can reflect. So in this way, in this Sattva-guna, the Sattva-guna is there. In fact, this Chitta is unconscious. Why? Because it is evolved out of Prakriti. But as it is finest and nearest to Purusha, it has powers to reflect the Purusha and therefore appears as if conscious. And in this way, it reflects the Purusha, and in that way, the Purusha thinks that it is the reflection and it comes under bondage. However, the real Purusha never comes under bondage. It is the phenomenal ego or the Jiva or the Sopadhik Purusha that comes under bondage. That's what we've discussed. The same, only the thing is the reflection is not happening in Mahat, rather it is happening in Chitta. And Chitta has three parts, that is the Mana, Ahankara and Buddhi or Mahat, you can say. So this is something. So this means yoga is the cessation of modifications of Chitta. That is, modification is what? Vritti. So Chitta Vritti Nirodha is yoga. This cessation is Nirodha. So this cessation is through meditation and concentration. When you meditate and concentrate, then only this Chitta Vritti Nirodha will happen. And that's why it is said Yogaha Samadhi. So what is Samadhi? It is the last stage of yoga. We will discuss that. So now again we will see that we have known what is Chitta and we know that Chitta Vritti is the mental modifications. But let us be very clear about it. So how do we get to it? What is Chitta? Chitta, what happens? It is a part of, it is something like we have seen that it is the first evolute out of Prakriti. So it gets related to anything and assumes the form of that object. It takes the form of that object. In this way, it is getting modified. So basically, for example, if I see a pen, my Chitta is getting modified towards the pen. A feeling for the love for the pen or pain for the pen comes, and this is where the Chitta is getting modified. These are the sensual impressions, thoughts and ideas about any object, and due to which what happens, the light of consciousness of Purusha. Purusha is pure consciousness, we had discussed yesterday. So a consciousness is not a part of Purusha, rather its essence. So the light of consciousness of Purusha, it illuminates this form that is formed out of the modification of Chitta, and this light is called Jnana. What this light is called? This light is called, just a minute, be with me. This light is called Jnana. So again, then Purusha wrongly identifies with itself in Chitta. Why does it wrongly identifies? Because what you say, it gets so beautifully reflected that it gets identified. There are some examples, like there is a red hot iron ball. In the red hot iron ball, the formless fire appears the spherical shape and the cold iron appears hot. In similar way, Purusha appears changing and Chitta appears conscious. However, Purusha can never change. Why? Because it is eternal. It is beyond space and time. It is beyond merit and demerit. It cannot change. And it is inactive. However, Chitta is unconscious, but however, it appears conscious. Why? Because it is nearer to Purusha and it has reflection from Sattva-guna. So again you will see there is another example. That is, the moon appears as moving when seen reflected in the moving waves, and waves appear luminous. In the same way, Purusha appears changing and the Chitta appears conscious. Just as the moon appears moving in the moving waves, in similar way Purusha appears changing. However, is the moon moving? No, it doesn't move. What is moving? The waves are moving. And waves appear luminous. It appears as if the waves have light. But do the waves have light? No, it is just reflecting the moon. In a similar way, the Chitta appears conscious just by reflecting the Purusha. So please remember these examples. They are very important to quote in the exam, and you will get good marks if you want to. If you will quote them, they will make your answers very expressive, very beautiful, and you will get good marks. So now we have known the Chittavriti. So there are 5 types of Chittavriti. What is one? One is, see, the Chittavriti means it is mental modification. See, the thing is that we are getting knowledge. But feel, for example, the Purusha, which is eternal, does it have any need to get knowledge? No, it doesn't need any knowledge as such. But due to the mental modification, it comes into the mortal world and there is a need for the knowledge and all those things. So Chittavriti are the 5 types of mental modifications. Now, number 1, what is Pramana? Pramana is right cognition, that it is believing the rope is rope. So how do you know that rope is rope? 1, you might see it by yourself, that is pratyaksha or perception. You can take an inference that this is something that is lying, it is long, it has the strands, and that it must be rope. And you can take the help of sabda, that is the Vedic sabda. If a rishi will say that something like this is rope, then it is rope. It is the correct cognition. It is the right thing to know. It is the right knowledge. Because again, yoga has accepted these 3 pramanas as the ultimate source of knowledge or the valid source of knowledge. Then next is viparyaya, that is wrong cognition. It is thinking that the rope is snake. You are confusing between the rope and snake. This is viparyaya. The third is vikalpa. Vikalpa is imagination or verbal cognition. What is imagination? You think of a hare's horn or a sky flower. It will not happen. It is, you can express them in linguistic terms, but you cannot have them in reality, because this is imagination, and that's why it is verbal cognition, because this level of knowledge is only possible by verbal means. It cannot happen in reality. Then the fourth one is nidra, or the absence of cognition or sleep. This is mental modification. A mental modification due to support the absence of knowledge after sleep. For example, let us take a very beautiful example. I slept for 4 hours, and when I wake up, I don't have any knowledge of what all happened in those times, but I will say that I slept for 4 hours. So here I don't have the knowledge of 4 hours, but there is some mental modification which is saying that I slept. Otherwise, how do I know? Because, for example, if I am working for 4 hours, I will say that I have worked this things for 4 hours. But for sleep, I have no awareness what I did during those times. But I say I slept for 4 hours. So there is some modification, and that is expressed by nidra. There is also another name that is used for it. I will tell you it later. Basically, the fifth one is smriti, or the memory. It is the recollection of past experience through the impressions left behind. For example, you went for a picnic and now you are remembering everything. This is smriti. The normal terms that we use in Hindi and the normal Devanagari script, they are used. Now again, you will see that the Purusha is getting reflected in Chitta, and what is formed the Sopadik Purusha, or the Jiva, and what it is the phenomenal ego, and it is getting into bondage. So once the Purusha, the Sopadik Purusha or the Jiva is in bondage, it will face the pain, because this is the ultimate reality of the world. You have to face the pain. So the pain here, or the suffering here, is called the Klesha. And what is the Klesha of Jiva and phenomenal ego? There are also 5 types. One is ignorance, avidya. And avidya and ignorance is the root cause of all the pain and suffering. The next is egoism or asmita. You remember the word asmita, it will come again once we discuss the Ashtang Yoga and the Samadhi, specifically the Sampragnata Samadhi. Then the third is attachment, or this is raga. And the fourth is the aversion or dvesa. See, the attachment is you want something, you are getting attached to it. And aversion or dvesa is like you are feeling the feel of jealousy for someone or something, or you aren't very good with it. So you must have observed that while taking the oath, they say that मैं बिना राग या द्वेष भय या पक्षपात के बिना अपना दायित्व निर्वहन करूंगा. Why do they say rag and dvesh? That is, I will not give over emphasis to anything. That means I will work unbiased, because attachment is something like favoring, and dvesh is something that you don't favor. But my job as a bureaucrat is that I will remain neutral to everything. I will not be biased. That's why they use the word rag and dvesh. They say that bina rag and dvesh, I will do my duty. And the last is the instinctive fear of death, and that is clinging to life. This is abhinivesha. Like, for example, every one of us, just assume Purusha is there. Purusha is the eternal entity. If someone is amar, if someone is immortal, does it have any fear of death? No. But we feel fear of death. What will happen if tomorrow I will come under the truck? What will happen if a snake will bite me? What will happen if I am inside the building and the building burns? There is an instinctive fear of death. Why does this happen? Because we don't realize that this is not the real Purusha. Rather, it is the phenomenal ego or the jiva. And that's why we have this abhinivesha. In fact, these things are not there when Purusha will realize that it is the real Purusha and there is nothing for it to see or to feel or to do anything. This is something. Now again, vritti can be of 2 types. This is Klesha and Aklesha. Klesha is what? This is harmful to the goal of liberation. These are the mental modifications which are very harmful for the goal of liberation. For example, if you will see, if you will go next to the Ashtang Yoga, you will see that they prescribe various ways in which you can discriminate between Prakriti and Purusha. In this, one of the ways is Yama, in which there are many things that is said, that Satya, Asteya and all those things. For example, Satya is something that you must practice. You must practice being truthfulness. However, if you say untruth, it is a Chittavriti, because it will take you away from your goal of liberation. However, there is another thing, that is Aklesha. It is not harmful for the goal of liberation, rather they are the modifications of Jivan Mukti. For example, like the thing of aging. I am getting age. I am 20, next I will be 25, next I will be 30. This modification is not harming me in my goal of liberation. They are something that will go on. This is the rule of the nature. And I feel you can see the parallel between them. In the Jaina school, we have seen that the Ghatya and Aghatya Karma. Ghatya Karma is very difficult for you to get be the Jina, and Aghatya Karma don't affect your chances of being a Jina. So this is something like you can directly compare, but I am asking you to relate all those things so that you can feel that every school is related in some way or the other. Every school is trying to take you to that ultimate truth, and it is trying to show you the path of life. Something. Now again, this is a drawing, and I want you to see it. First, this is thought, Chittavriti. Due to Chittavriti, see, Purusha is inactive. It doesn't have to do any action. Just because it comes under the effect of Chittavriti, it does some action. This who does? Phenomenal ego, that is Jiva. And due to which a samskara is formed. Samskara is the imprints and all those things. Due to which there is attachment to something, that is Klesha. And this attachment again leads to Chittavriti. And this cycle continues. And this is the cycle of bondage. And you have to break this cycle so that you will go to liberation. Now I feel you must be clear with all those things. So now we understood how does the Purusha gets into bondage. How does the Purusha, in fact it is not the real Purusha, rather the phenomenal ego is getting into bondage. And how does it get it? And due to this bondage, what all pain it suffers. So now again, that our path from here will start towards the journey of liberation. How can we get the discriminative knowledge, that is the Viveka Khyati, the Samyak Khyati, or the this Jnana, the Samyak Jnana, by which we can break the shackles of bondage, and the Purusha will realize its true nature, that it is of the nature of pure consciousness. And here the term comes, that is the Chitta Bhumi. So what is Chitta Bhumi? Chitta Bhumi are the levels of mental life. It is our mental life with the differences, because there are 5 Chitta Bhumi. Why these differences are there? Because the various different gunas dominate them, and due to which there are 5 Chitta Bhumis. They are our mental levels. The number 1 is Shipta, that is restless. It has excess of Rajas, and we have seen that Rajas is the principle of mobility. It is mobile. So due to which you are too much indulged in sense object. What all sense object? You are like a shuttlecock in the sense object. You are moving from this thing to that thing, and you are very much indulged into materialism and all those things. And you are not getting the real essence of life. That you must have to liberate the Purusha. You must have to liberate yourself. You must have to attain Apavarga. So now the next Chitta Bhumi is Mudha, that is the torpid. So here there is a dominance of Tamas, due to which you are more into ignorance, sleep and lethargy. Basically these all things are your mental states. How are you? If you are very much indulged into all these material aspects without thinking of Apavarga, mostly you are in the Shipta. If you are more or less lethargic, depressed and all those things, you are into Mudha. Then the third is Vikshipta, or the distracted. Here Sattva dominates, Sattva comes into power. But there is some Rajas, and you know wherever Rajas is there, you are restless. You are moving from here to there. However, to get liberation, you must be absolutely concentrated on anything. Now comes the one of the most important Chitta Bhumi, that is the Ekagra, and this is being concentrated. It is dominated by Sattva, and Rajas and Tamas are subdued. And here mind becomes concentrated on the object of meditation. Here there are no more distractions. Here the mind is getting concentrated on the object of meditation. And the last one is the Nirudha, that is the restricted, and here the mental modifications are arrested. What is mental modifications? Use the keywords, that is Chittavritti. Chittavritti is arrested, and only latent impressions are remain there. So this is the highest stage of mental reflection, or the Chitta Bhumi. The lowest one is Shipta, the highest one is Nirudha. So this is something that I wanted to know. In fact, you will see that only Ekagra and Nirudha are the 2 Chitta Bhumis which are conducive for yogic practice. Because yogic practice requires absolute right concentration, and this is there in Ekagra and Nirudha. So now there are 2 types of Chitta. In fact, one is Karya Chitta and another is Karana Chitta. Yesterday, like we discussed, that everything has 2 aspects, that is cosmic and psychological. Just example, Mahati said the cosmic thing and the Buddhi said the psychological. In similar way, there are 2 things. The Chitta in the psychological realm, it is the Karya Chitta, and in the cosmic realm, it is the Karana Chitta. So again, Karya Chitta is the empirical consciousness, because it is limited by the existence of physical body, just like we discussed yesterday. And it is changeable, and it is limited due to vasanas. What are vasanas? Vasanas are the karmic imprints which are influencing us to do our current actions, because we have the karmic imprints from the past. So they are the vasanas. However, Karana Chitta is the Chitta in the state of perfect placidity. And in fact, it is that aspect of Chitta which is beyond this body, and that's why it is the cosmic Chitta, you can say, and it is non-changeable. So by yogic practice, what is our aim? We have to change the Karya Chitta into Karana Chitta. This is the goal of yoga. So now there is another thing, the term, that is Dharma Megha Samadhi. I will discuss that, but once after we discuss the Ashtang Yoga. So now we have come to this one, and this is the Ashtang Yoga. Ashtang Yoga. This is something that is the central part of the yoga over here. I must tell you that Ashtang Yoga here has 8 parts. It is 8 limbs. That's why it is called Ashtanga. Ashta is 8 and Anga is limb. So there are 8 parts. And you will see that this is not only a physical or spiritual thing, rather it is a combination of ethical, physical, psychological and spiritual aspect. You will see there are 8 parts. The number 1 is Yama, number 2 is Niyama, number 3 is Asan, 4 is Pranayam, 5th is Pratyahar, 6th is Dharana, 7th is Dhyan and 8th is Samadhi. This is the ultimate culmination of the yogic practice. So now you will see that the first Yama and Niyamas are the ethical practice. What is there in Yama? They are the moral code. So it is there Ahimsa, non-violence, Satya, non-lying, Asteya, non-stealing, Brahmacharya, non-waste of vital energy, and Aparigraha is non-greed for all the unnecessary things. This is same as the Panch Mahavratas of Jainas. Now the next thing is, so basically someone who is aspiring for liberation has to follow this moral code of conduct so that he will be worthy enough to gain that liberation, discriminative knowledge. The next is Niyama. And what is there in Niyama? The Saucha is purity. Purity of what? Both body and mind. Why? Body is body and mind. This is the external purification. This is the internal. External is called Bhahyantara and internal is Abhyantara. Abhyantara Shuddhikarana. So this is required. So even if you are not pure, how will you attain that discriminative knowledge, that Viveka Khyati? The next thing of Niyama is Santosha, being content with whatever you have. Don't get that I will need everything and everything and everything. Don't get into greed, basically it says. Then the next is Swadhyaya, that is self-study. Then the fourth is tapas, discipline or the penance you have to do. You have to endure all those things so that you will be worthy enough a candidate to get liberation. And the last is Ishwar Pranidhan. Ishwar Pranidhan. Again here the term comes Ishwar. Why? You will realize the benefit of this Ishwar once you go to the term of God of Yoga. Because here there is a God. And they say that you have to surrender yourself to the God so that you will know the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality. What is ultimate reality? It is the liberation. It is the separation of Purusha from Prakriti. And that's why it is said Ishwar Pranidhan. So these two steps, Yama and Niyama, are the ethical steps. They are more into realizing your ethical realms. Then the next two steps are physical realms. One is asana. See, basically this is a very long step. The Ashtang Yoga is a very long process. If the first thing that you have to do while you want to get the right knowledge by right concentration, you must be able to make yourself prepared that you can sit in a posture for long hours. And this is what is asana. In fact, this is Bhadrasana, Virasana, lot of asanas are there, Padmasana. In fact, what all things that you are learning in the current day yoga, what do you think that yoga, this thing, Mandukasana, Kopasana and all those things mostly are of this two realms, pranayam and asana. But the yoga is very vast. There are 8 limbs to it. We are considering only 2 as the yoga, like the International Day of Yoga, the June 21 that we follow. They are mostly limited these 2 realms, that is the pranayama and asana. We are not into yam, niyam and pratyahar, dharana, dhyan and samadhi. So basically you will see this is asana. It is making yourself comfortable to sit for long hours in a posture so that you will be able to imbibe that great knowledge, the Vivek Khyati. Then again this is pranayam. What is pranayam? Pranayam has 3 stages. One is Purak, then it is Kumbhak, and the third is Rechak. So if you know, any pranayam has 3 steps. Purak is inhaling this thing, inhaling the air. Kumbhak is keeping the air within you, and Rechak is excreting the air. Rechak process is the excretion. In fact, exhaling out the air is called Rechak. So why these 3 steps are there? In fact, pranayam is the method of breath control. I will show you a story about Patanjali and you will be very clear about it. You know why this thing of asana, yoga, pranayam came to Patanjali at first? There is a beautiful story attached with it. Once Patanjali was traveling, the Patanjali Rishi, he was traveling and he saw that there is a well nearby where the women are taking out water. While they are taking out water, they are placing their bucket or the pot at the same spot in the well. Due to placing of the pot on the same spot for many years, there was a depression in that place, because just like if you walk on the same road for many years, the friction of the road goes and like you can see the path over there. Just like placing a single thing over for many years, you will see there are some depressions. And he saw there was a depression due to only placing of the pot on the well for so many years. So he thought, what would happen? I am inhaling the air and exhaling the air many times a day. And what will happen? The body is facing the friction of this air. While I am inhaling the air is gushing in with the friction. by placing by so less friction, it is able to corrode the rock. But how much corrosion will be happening inside my body just by inhaling and exhaling the body? And that's why he brought this concept of breathe control. And this is what is pranayama. By breathe control, you will have a control in your body. You will have a control in your mind. And this, I don't want to go deeper into this aspect of pranayama because it might not be relevant for you for the exam. But we can have a separate session on pranayama itself. And you will know how pranayama is very much essential for your mind control, in fact for your body. And we saw the relevance of pranayama during the whole of the corona time. So pardon me for going over there. I just told you the story so that it will be easier for you to remember. Then the fifth step is pratyahara. It is the sense withdrawal. You have to withdraw your senses from all the material objects, all the external objects, till you are attached with something. How will you attain that liberating knowledge? How will you attain that viveka khyati? You cannot know that. That's why the most important thing, you have to withdraw the senses. Once you have withdrawn your senses, now now the chance that comes is you have to be in dharana or dharan. Many say it is dharan. It is a single-handed focus on the things. In fact, you can see over here, it is the dharan is the concentration. It is mental level concentration in which you are mindful awareness and the conscious attention. Once you have mastered dharana, you have to come to dhyan, or this is meditation. This is the very higher level of dharana in which there is development of inner attention, and you are no longer into all those objects of meditation. In fact, I will say to keep it very precise and very simple, it is the very higher level of dharana. In fact, where after you have practiced the thing of focusing, now you are entered into a very absorptive state of meditation or dhyan. Then the last step is samadhi. Samadhi is the final step. It is the culmination of the yogic practice. And in fact, we will discuss that later because it has various steps. So we will discuss that. So here I want to take your attention to something that yama and niyama are the ethical level, asana and pranayama are the physiological or the physical level. This pratyahara dharana is in fact sensual level, and many say that samadhi and dhyana are the spiritual level. In fact, many say samadhi only is the spiritual level, and in fact dharana, dhyana, samadhi are psychological things. So basically there are some here and there things, but it is fine. You can take whatever you want, because they are all open to interpretations, because those terms are physical, ethical, all those things were not relevant back then. It is up to the thinkers how do they classify them. So this is this thing. So this is all about samadhi. This is all about the Ashtang Yoga. And after the samadhi, you will be able to get the Kaivalya Gyan, and that is the Vivek Khyati, the discriminative knowledge. And due to which the Purusha gets separated, Purusha realizes its true nature. It doesn't identifies itself with the phenomenal ego, and it gets liberated. It gets apavarga, and Prakriti is separated. Now we'll discuss the elements of Samadhi. Samadhi, there are two stages. One is Samapragyanta, that is conscious Samadhi, and Asamapragyanta, that is supra-conscious Samadhi. In Samapragyanta Samadhi, there are 6 stages. However, many say that there are only 4 stages. I have written a note over there at the end that there are some confusions, again I am saying. But as far as answer writing in UPSC or other competitive exams is concerned, we can write this. However, it is up to your own discretion that you can do anything. The first step is Savitarka Samadhi. It is the awareness and memory of the object perceived. That is, your memory and awareness about gross objects persist. Then the next is Nirvitarka, where this memory awareness is purged out of the gross object. Then it is Savichara. Here awareness is attached with space and time. In fact, the Chitta is concentrated on subtler object, and it is like Tanmatras. It is concentrated not on gross but rather on subtler things. Then the fourth one is Nirvichara. Here the space and time is also transcended. Then the fifth one is Sananda or Sa-Ananda Samadhi. Here the awareness becomes aware of the Chitta itself. I am becoming aware of myself. Similar to that, Chitta is becoming aware of itself. And this is the blissful absorption due to dominance of Sattva Guna. And in fact, it is concentrated on subtler objects of meditation that produces joy like senses, and they are concentrated on Sattvika subtle object. And the last stage is Sa-Asmita Samadhi. Here I say, remember the word Asmita. Here comes the Asmita. Asmita is egoism. So here concentrated on the ego substance. Here the conscious ecstasy with individuality persists. So these are all the 6 stages of Samapragyanta Samadhi. This is the first stage of Samadhi. The next stage is Asamapragyanta Samadhi. It is further classified into 2 subtypes. One is Bhava Pratyaya Samadhi. What is Bhava? Bhava is ignorance. Here the Samadhi is disturbed due to ignorance, and due to which the samskaras or the of passions remains. The next is Upaya Pratyaya Samadhi, whereas the ignorance is completely destroyed due to the arousal of Prajna. Prajna is what? It is the Viveka Khyati, it is the knowledge. And Kleshas are annihilated and Chitta is established in true knowledge. So basically these are two types of Samadhi. In fact, it is said that Asamaprajnata Samadhi is very difficult to attain, and once one attains it, he lives for a very short period of time, or many die instantly, just because they are not able to handle the huge amount of energy that inflows through the body. However, many have tamed it and they are getting, and you cannot stay in the state of Asamprajnata Samadhi for a very long period of time, because it is too indescribable that no one can describe it. However, this is the note that I have written. Many say that Nirvitarka and Nirvichar Samadhi are part of Asamaprajnata. However, there is a debate about all those things, so you are free to write whatever you want. And this is the comparison between Samaprajnata and Asamaprajnata Samadhi. Here, so again I am saying here, Samadhi, what exactly is Samadhi? Samadhi is the ultimate level of Ashtang Yoga, where you get the knowledge of liberation. That Purusha is not identical with its reflection in Chitta, rather it is the pure consciousness. So now again we will differentiate between Samaprajnata and Asamaprajnata Samadhi. Samaprajnata Samadhi is also called conscious Samadhi, Sabija Samadhi, attributed Samadhi, or Savikalpa Samadhi. However, Asaprajnata is called supraconscious, Nirbija, attributeless, or Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Basically, you must have heard of all those terms. Then Samaprajnata Samadhi, here the object of meditation persists. That's why Alamban, the use of the word Alamban is important here. Support of Chitta is needed. However, here Asamaprajnata, the object of meditation is transcended. That means here in Samaprajnata, the difference between the meditator and the object of meditation is somewhat remaining. Although they fuse, but somewhat it is remaining in a very subtle form. However, in Asamaprajnata Samadhi, there is no awareness of the meditator and the object of meditation. They are fused beyond a limit, and that's where you don't feel any the difference between them. And Samaprajnata Samadhi is correlated with the Ekagra Chitta Bhumi, and Asamaprajnata being the culmination of this thing, it is related with the Nirudha Chitta Bhumi. And again, Samaprajnata Samadhi, here the mind is concentrated on an object of meditation with consciousness of it. And here what we discussed, there is no consciousness of the object of meditation. Now again here, I had left you with a term, that is what is, just a minute. Yes. So now I have left you with a term, that is Dharma Megha Samadhi. You must be remembering, this is Dharma Megha Samadhi. So there is again a doubt of confusion between many. So that's why I am not telling you exactly that you may write this or that, but I am just telling you what is the concept. Dharma Megha Samadhi, it is the showering of Dharma, it is the ultimate culmination of Dharma Samadhi, and it is one of the very highest state of Samadhi. Many say it is the last step of Samaprajnata Samadhi. That's why it is the Sa-Asmita Samaprajnata Samadhi. However, say it is many others say it is the last step, and in fact it is one step ahead of the last step of Asamaprajnata Samadhi. That is, it is beyond the Upaya Pratyaya Samadhi. So there is a confusion with respect to that. That's why I am just telling you the term, that there is a term called Dharma Megha Samadhi, and don't get confused if you get it somewhere. Now we come to the last part of our discussion, that is the Purusha Vishesha. What is Purusha Vishesha, or the God of the Purusha Vishesha, or God of the Yoga school. Now we will discuss what all it is about and what are its proofs and some criticisms. Number one, it is Purusha Vishesha is free from pain, action, effect and impressions. It is eternally free, never bound. It is above law of karma. It is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. It is perfection incarnate. It is purest knowledge. It is the teacher of Rishis. Sa purvesham api guruhu. This is the term that they use. It is the teacher of Vedas. Its symbol is Om. And this is the thing that is used to describe the Purusha. However, what are its limitations that they say? Although the yoga school has described Purusha Vishesha, or the God, or the special Purusha in a very higher terms, but it has not granted him the status of the creator, preserver or destroyer of the world. This is one of the limitations. Number two limitations, it cannot grant you liberation. It can only remove your obstacles on the path of it. The devotees need to devote, because Ishwar Pranidhan is a path. Ishwar Pranidhan is a step that we've seen in the Niyama of Ashtang Yoga. It is asking you to surrender yourself to God. And what is God? God is the special Purusha. However, that God cannot grant you liberation. This is the irony. It can only remove the obstacles in your path so that you will gain the liberating knowledge, Vivek Khyati, and that liberation is not union with God. Rather, the liberation is the separation of Purusha from Prakriti. Again, there is another limitation, that is that is there are several Purusha and Prakriti to limit him. So that means the Purusha here is not the sole ultimate reality. It is not above Purusha and Prakriti. Rather, it is one amongst the Purusha. It is the first among the equals. Something like that. So it is, there are several, and in fact there are many Purusha and Prakriti which are limiting it. So this is the discussion about Purusha of yoga. They have given some proofs. Number one, Vedic dictum. Vedic text says that the God exists. That's why Purusha must exist. Then there is law of continuity. What is law of continuity? There is law of continuity means everything that we see, it ultimately says that there is something that is very absolute to it. It says that if there is anything that is existing, then there must be something which is the natural culmination of it. Basically. So in this way, say that by the law of continuity, there must be the highest limit of knowledge and perfection, which is the God. Then the third is association and dissociation of Prakriti and Purusha. So it says, who does the association and dissociation of Prakriti and Purusha? They say it is the God which is the responsible for the association and dissociation of Purusha and Prakriti. This is one of the proof that they give. And the last proof is, they say devotion to God is the surest way to get the concentration, and this concentration will lead you to liberation. And in fact, this is the way, that's why they say to obtain the concentration, there must be a God on which you will focus, on which you will do Ishwar Pranidhan. And that is the way to get liberation. Until otherwise, you will not get liberation, because who will remove the obstacles in their path? So they provide these 4 proofs to say that the God exists. However, they have not given him the ultimate status of the God. Rather, it is a half-hearted declaration of God. And in fact, it is just like a stop-gap arrangement wherein you are using just the sellotape to sellotape or the puncture pair, so that you are making your philosophy like complete, but you are not assigning him the due respect that it should have got. So this is the yoga school. You don't consider yoga school as mostly, as I have said, that during the Ashtang yoga you will get very high yogic powers. But the yoga school says that your ultimate aim is to reach the level of samadhi, ultimate state of asamma pragyanta samadhi, or the nirvikalpa samadhi, or the nirvija samadhi. So don't get distracted by all the achievements of the magical powers that you will get. So in fact, that's why don't treat yoga school as something like a magical or yogic or magical or something like a tantra mantra school. Rather, it is a very beautiful school. It comprises of ethics, it comprises of physical education, it comprises of psychological experiences, it comprises of spirituality. So that's why it is best in our terms if we consider yoga school as one of the very important school. And in fact, the government of the day and many nations of the world are appreciating it just because it has used terms in relevance in treating us in both physical and mental level. But for the mental depression and all those things, yoga school provides a very way out. Please quote the use of Ashtang Yoga wherever you get chance in ethics essay and paper 2, because it is very relevant if you are trying to treat someone. Because treating someone in physical way is one thing, and treating someone in the mental realm is another thing. And yoga is a very potent tool to treat them in all of the ways. So that's all that I wanted to discuss about yoga. We will discuss about other schools in next classes. I hope you liked it. Thanks a lot for being there here with me, and we will come with next session. Thanks a lot, and please do inform me if there is anything, and pardon me for any error as such if you find. Thanks a lot. Stopping the recording. Namaste. This is MUMUKSHU session for you. Namaste.